Our love story spans over 33 years, filled with ups and downs, but always rooted in our deep affection for one another. My wife, 55, and I, male 55, met at a bustling nightclub in the vibrant 80s. At the time, I was working as a bouncer, keeping the rowdy crowds in check. Little did I know that this job would lead me to the love of my life. After going out on a date, we quickly moved in together, and just 2 years later, we tied the knot. Life was good. We had fulfilling careers, cherished family time, and a strong bond between us. However, as I transitioned from an active job to a sedentary one, I started to put on weight. It got to a point where even simple tasks became difficult due to health issues like asthma attacks during sex. Despite trying various methods to reignite our intimacy, we remained faithful to each other. Having been cheated on in the past, infidelity was a firm boundary for us. We believed that we would grow old together, celebrating milestone after milestone as partners of 33 years. But after 2 decades of a stale bedroom, I made the decision to lose weight for 3 reasons: to witness my grandkids grow up, improve my health, and revitalize our physical relationship. And it worked. For the past 2 years, we have enjoyed passionate lovemaking 3 to 4 times per week, and my wife reveled in every moment of it. Her body never lies. We were finally in a place where we could fully enjoy each other's company once again. She still claims to be deeply in love with me, and I return those feelings tenfold. Our relationship was built on trust and transparency. We shared apps on our phones so that we could keep track of each other's whereabouts at all times. It wasn't about lack of trust, rather it was a safety measure. Our phones, messages, and emails were all easily accessible to one another. Trust was never an issue between us. That is, until 3 days ago. My wife went on a vacation with her 2 sisters, heading out of state for some quality time together. I had no qualms about this trip, as I trusted her wholeheartedly. But she knew that infidelity was the ultimate deal breaker for us, even after 33 years of marriage. Our relationship was built on honesty and openness, but now I'm left wondering if there's been a breach in our unbreakable bond. As I shed the weight and transformed into a more attractive version of myself, I couldn't help but notice the increased attention from women. But I was happily married and never let it get to my head. My wife, on the other hand, expressed insecurities about her own weight gain as she saw me being desired by others. However, I reassured her every day that I loved her no matter what and found her to be beautiful inside and out. Our intimate moments were always passionate and fulfilling, though looking back, I regret not putting in more effort in our relationship earlier. After a long day at work, I received a call from my wife. Her voice trembled as she asked if my sister-in-law had talked to me. Confused, I replied no, and asked what was wrong. What she told me next shattered my heart into pieces. She admitted to cheating on me with another man. She apologized profusely, claiming that she didn't know what came over her. Numb with shock, I sat in my car as she continued to explain. She had been drinking with her sisters until 2 a.m. when a married couple joined them at the bar. They all continued to drink and chat before her sisters left to go back to their room. In her intoxicated state, my wife went back to the couple's room to keep drinking and talking. The husband and wife showered her with compliments, telling her how sexy she was and how lucky I was to have her. Then the man began touching her, and the wife encouraged them both, promising that no one would find out and urging my wife to just enjoy herself. Lost in the moment, she gave in and slept with the husband while the wife watched. The next morning, she woke up in bed with both of them asleep beside her. Panicked, she quickly returned to her own room, where her sister caught her red-handed. Faced with no choice, she confessed everything to her. Her sister gave her an ultimatum: tell me or I will. And that's how I found out about my wife's infidelity. The sound of her sobs echoed through the phone as she begged for my forgiveness. Numbness overtook me as I tried to process what she was saying. How could she just throw away everything we had built together? Tears streamed down her face in a torrent as she professed her love for me and begged for another chance. But I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't a mistake, but a conscious decision she had made. My heart is heavy with sorrow. I ended the call and turned off my phone. The weight of the situation settled on my shoulders as I went home and sat in a chair, trying to make sense of it all. My mind raced with thoughts of our past, our future, and how everything would change now. Tears fell freely from my eyes as I grieved for the loss of my wife, the woman I thought I knew so well. Memories flooded my mind as I mourned not only our marriage, but also the impact her decision would have on our family. Everything I had known was crumbling before me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. For the next 2 days, I shut myself off from the world, unable to face the reality of what was happening. But then, I turned my phone back on and was bombarded with messages from her and her sisters. The last message read that she was on her way home. Concerned calls from my children also came through, their mother having reached out to them to see if they had heard from me. With a heavy heart, I called them back and explained what had happened. I assured them that I was doing the best I could in the midst of this turmoil, but needed some time alone to come to terms with the end of our marriage. Before she arrived home, I sent a text to my soon-to-be ex-wife informing her that we were getting a divorce and that I no longer wanted to hear from her. My emotions were raw, and I didn't want to deal with the details or try to salvage what was left of our relationship. The pain I felt was unimaginable, the love we had shared now destroyed in an instant. Update number 1. My mind is a tangled mess, thoughts racing in every direction. I can't seem to focus on one thing for too long. Just to clarify, our once passionate bedroom had become more of a stagnant pond. The spark that used to ignite between us was now barely a flicker. My job in the military was physically demanding and fulfilling until an unfortunate injury changed everything. After my medical discharge, my wife and I decided to start a small business together. Before confronting my wife, I confided in my sister-in-law and her husband, seeking their advice. However, as my wife's story kept changing, it became clear that there were discrepancies in her version of events from when she first confessed. My children were devastated by the events that unfolded, their innocent faces twisted in shock and disbelief. I tried to explain to them that while they may harbor anger towards their mother for what she has done, she is still their mother and the grandmother of their precious children. Despite her actions that led to the downfall of our marriage, she still loves them deeply. My wife and her sisters abruptly cut our holiday short and returned home. In a desperate attempt for some semblance of control, I left a note for my wife instructing her to pack her things and go stay with her mother, and just like that, she did. The true details of what happened are even more unsettling than what my wife had initially confessed to me under the threat of exposure. As expected, she didn't divulge the full truth. But now that she has broken down to her sister and revealed everything, it's hard to know what to believe until I have a chance to sit down and talk with my wife face to face. The weight of betrayal hangs heavy in the air as I try to come to terms with this new reality. As she told the story to her sister, her voice trembled with emotion and regret. This is what she told her sister. She spoke of love and marriage, but also of unexpected desires and a blame placed on their active sex life. For 2 years they had explored together, but it seems she had been searching for something more all along. She used to be the one desired in their relationship, but now she felt as though the roles had reversed. Insecurity and a need for outside validation drove her actions, and though she swears it was a one-time occurrence, she admits to planning it. It was a fantasy that she couldn't resist scratching. Her husband's sisters were unaware of the couple she met with, interstate customers of theirs, whom she spoke with over the phone frequently. They pretended to be strangers when they met up for drinks, her sisters joining them. Though she did drink that night, she wasn't drunk enough to lose control. All three had planned this rendezvous beforehand. Now, my wife is coming over to talk this afternoon. She is beside herself with worry about what will happen next, but I already know what I will do. I didn't cheat. I didn't force her to lie. Her feelings about losing me and our marriage are valid, but I don't care about her misery because ultimately she made the choice to cheat. And now, everyone involved will have to face the consequences of her actions. Our relationship is over, and they must navigate their changed lives separately. Update number 2. To begin, I want to express my gratitude to the overwhelming 99% who have shown their unwavering support. Your kind words and encouragement mean more than you know. As I write this, I can't seem to stop my fingers from tapping against the keys, pouring out my thoughts and feelings onto the screen. It feels cathartic and therapeutic to see them in tangible form. Yesterday, I finally had the talk with my wife that I had been dreading for so long. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, our hands fidgeting nervously as we tried to avoid making eye contact. After over a decade of being together, we both knew that we couldn't sleep well without the other by our side. But last night, something changed. For the first time in years, I had a peaceful night's sleep without her beside me. As she walked through the door and entered our home, her appearance reflected the inner turmoil she was feeling. Dark circles under her eyes, a guilty expression etched on her face, and red, puffy eyes from lack of rest. Normally, my heart would break at the sight of her in such distress, and I would do everything in my power to make her feel better. But this time, something inside me shifted. As she approached me for a hug and began to cry, apologizing for whatever mistake she had made, I calmly lifted my hand and stopped her from touching me. Instead, I gestured for her to sit down beside me. Her eyes never left my face as I offered to make her a cup of coffee. She nodded silently, and I got up to prepare the drinks, trying to maintain an air of composure, even though my heart was racing with emotions. As we sat back down at the table with our steaming mugs of coffee, I could feel the tension in the room escalate. Her tears still hadn't stopped flowing, and she looked like she was waiting for me to say something. For a moment, all I could do was take a deep breath and try to find the right words to express how hurt and betrayed I felt. It took all of my strength not to break down in front of her. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I spoke up and addressed the elephant in the room. I asked her to explain what had happened, why she felt the need to betray my trust and break our vows. As she began to open up and share her side of the story, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and even a faint glimmer of hope that we could work through this together. She was about to say something, but I silenced her and asked her to just listen and answer my questions. This conversation wasn't about her, it was about me and our marriage. I made it clear that we were at a point of no return. She had made her decision, and now it was time for me to make mine. I wanted some honesty from her, even if it was just a sliver. So I said that I had talked to her sister, which was true, and also to the couple, which was not true, but she didn't know that. Inside, I was experiencing a strange mix of emotions: happiness that she seemed upset, but also sadness for us as a couple. Along with these conflicting feelings, there was disappointment, anger, and all the expected reactions. Yet despite this emotional turmoil, I remained calm. At that moment, it almost felt like a job interview to me. I inquired about the number of times, and she replied that it had only happened physically once, but they had also engaged in it twice through video chat. I pressed her to explain how it all came about. She told me that their business conversation turned into flirting, and when the wife gave her permission and joined in, it progressed to watching them have sexual intercourse. She confessed that it had always been a fantasy of hers to have sex while being watched by someone else, and they were all on board with it. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted that things went too far, and she knew it was risky, which made it even more thrilling for her. She began to say something about feeling insecure, but I interrupted her and told her I didn't want to hear any excuses or justifications. We had to take a break for about 5 minutes because she was crying so much. Once she composed herself, she disclosed that they had met at the planned location and went straight to the couple's room after her sisters left the bar. I confronted her about her infidelity, and she confessed that it was just a fantasy she thought she could fulfill without ever cheating again. But I called her out and asked if she had cheated even once within our 33 years of marriage, and she adamantly denied it. However, I told her that the impact is still the same regardless of how many times she may have strayed. If she's lying, the only ones who will suffer are our children and her relationship with them, as well as our grandchildren. At this point, whether or not I believe her is irrelevant. It suddenly dawned on her that I had no intention of working through her betrayal. She begged me to try and save our marriage, offering to do anything, and even allowing me to have affairs if it meant I would stay. She promised she would never cheat again, but I made it clear that such things were not in my nature, and even if I were to sleep with someone else, it would mean we were over for good with no chance of reconciliation. This was the furthest thing from my mind. She reached out to hold my hand, but I refused, telling her that I would never touch her again. I am not one to judge others for their choices, as everyone's lifestyle is their own business. I understand that some people engage in extramarital affairs or have open marriages, but that was not the case for us. The trust and respect in our relationship was shattered when she intentionally sought out another man. As a pragmatic person, I felt a sense of relief instead of anger or sadness. I made it clear that we would handle this situation as smoothly as possible, but my words seemed to give her false hope for our future together. I had to clarify that we were done and would never reconcile. She may still be physically alive, but to me, the woman I loved and married died when she chose to have sex with someone else, especially after actively planning it. Our happy memories together will always remain, like holidays and building our first home, raising our children, and sharing laughter through life's ups and downs. But now, our lives will go in separate directions, and I am looking forward to what lies ahead without her by my side. When I do find love again, I hope to create new memories with someone who truly respects and values our relationship. Even though she was sobbing and trembling, I felt no sympathy towards her. All I wanted was for this woman to leave my house. I had to take a break from our conversation because she couldn't stop crying. While she gathered herself, I went down to the shed and called my children. I explained the situation to them, and they were incredibly understanding and advised me not to prolong the inevitable and just end things quickly. When I returned, she immediately started apologizing and trying to convince me that our marriage could still work. I sat down and told her my plan. We would sell the house and business and split everything equally. She could keep the car while I took the truck and motorcycle. Our cats would go with her. But I made it clear that she was not to contact me unless it was about our children or grandchildren. I would contact the lawyers to begin the divorce process, and she was free to do whatever or whoever she wanted now that she was a free woman. She insisted that she didn't want anyone else and accused me of being emotionally cold. But I stood firm, telling her that her actions had left me feeling empty and that she alone was responsible for destroying our marriage. After giving her time to pack some more belongings, I left for my daughter's house. We talked for hours and played with my grandchild. When I returned home, she had gone, and for the first time since this all began, I slept soundly without her by my side. Now, only time will tell how things will unfold in the next 6 months or so. Update number 3. It has been 5 chaotic weeks since my ex-wife destroyed our marriage. I have had plenty of time to think about my decision, and I am still confident in it. I could never trust or even touch her again. The thought alone repulses me. It was her choice to cheat and ruin our relationship with no justification other than she thought she wouldn't get caught. She is currently living with her mother, while I have been preparing our house for sale. We've lived in this house for 20 years, so there was a lot of clutter to clear out before we put it on the market. Thankfully, there are already interested buyers, and I am optimistic that it will be sold within the next couple of weeks. I have also sold my portion of our business, as one of our clients wanted to expand and made an offer which I accepted last week. The settlement process will take about a month. Divorce is a pain in the butt, as we are required to be legally separated for 12 months and 1 day before filing for divorce. Even then, it takes another 4 months for the divorce to be finalized if it is uncontested. Property settlement is a separate matter that cannot be resolved until after the divorce is finalized. Fortunately, I don't anticipate any issues with dividing our joint possessions, and as long as my ex-wife continues to sign the necessary paperwork, it will make moving on much easier for me. Her thought process is different from my son's. They only spoke once, and it wasn't a pleasant conversation. Just to clarify, my children are grown adults with families of their own. I reminded my son that it would take time, but she is still his mother, and she was a good one. He shouldn't let her decision ruin their relationship. My daughter, on the other hand, has been in constant communication with her. While she is disappointed by her mother's actions, she has been there for her throughout the breakup. My daughter is very straightforward and doesn't hold back from sharing the consequences of her mother's choices. My soon-to-be ex-wife is foolish enough to believe that I will simply forget and forgive her. She believes that our long history together will be enough to change my mind. But when she came over to sign the real estate contract and told me that I would eventually come around, that I still love her and we could have a happy life together if we just brushed this off as a small hiccup in our marriage, I was stunned. I couldn't believe what she was saying. She cheated on me in the worst possible way, another man's penis inside of her, even while his wife watched. How could I ever want to touch her again? She tried to explain herself, saying she knew it was wrong and she regrets it now, but it wasn't even enjoyable. But I didn't want to hear any excuses or details. The fact remains that she went through with it. I made it clear to her that there was no chance for us to reconcile. I want nothing to do with her, and am eager to move on with my life without her by my side. It seems like she is refusing to accept the reality of our situation and understands that she no longer has any control over my decisions or my emotions towards her. With her deceitful and manipulative behavior, she single-handedly unraveled a once loving marriage. She was fully aware of the consequences before she carried out her actions, so it's naive to think that this situation isn't a direct result of her choices. The ironic thing is that now other women seem to take notice of me. While I have no interest in pursuing any relationships at this time, it's comforting to know that I will have plenty of options when I am ready. My soon-to-be ex-wife even became angry when she found out female acquaintances had come over to visit and bring me dinner, purely innocent gestures. She told me she wants me to get it out of my system and then come back to her. How twisted is she? The only thing I want out of my system is her. I am still grappling with a range of intense emotions: hatred, anger, disgust, profound sadness, and a sense of betrayal and loss. But I am a resilient man and will face them head-on. My primary goal now is to focus on untangling any financial ties with my wife and move forward with my life. Final update. As the sun sets on the horizon, I reflect upon the past 3 months and marvel at how quickly my life has changed. In a flurry of activity, I sold my business and house, legally separated from my wife, and divided our joint assets. Now, as I embark on this new chapter of my life, I can hardly believe where I am today compared to just a few months ago. I once had everything I could have ever wanted: a loving wife, successful self, employment, a supportive network of family and friends, and a comfortable home. I had envisioned spending the rest of my days with my beloved wife by my side. But now, as I stand here alone on this road to a new beginning, I realize that life can take unexpected turns and lead us down paths we never thought possible. The foundation of our family was shattered when my soon-to-be ex-wife betrayed me with lies, infidelity, and disloyalty. Despite the normal challenges that arise in any long-term relationship, we have always remained faithful to each other. When her deception was exposed, it tore me apart. The loss of our life together was like a natural disaster, leaving nothing but devastation and confusion in its wake. I could not comprehend why she would do such a thing. But then, something unexpected happened. This betrayal became the catalyst for a major shift in my life. It wasn't what I wanted or chose, but my unfaithful wife made the decision for both of us. As a practical man, family values have always been important to me, so when I found myself in this new chapter of my life, it was an easy transition. I made the conscious decision to not let my emotions bring me down and refuse to play the victim. It's a fruitless mindset. After selling our family home and business and splitting everything evenly with my ex-wife, I had enough money to purchase 2 small units near my grandchildren. My son and daughter live in different states with their own families, so this allows me to have my own space while still being close enough to visit them. I am still working part-time after being offered a job by a previous business competitor. It gives me enough free time to start enjoying life again. I had a couple of weeks where I didn't have anything planned, so I took my bike out for rides without any specific destination in mind. I stopped for coffee and enjoyed the scenery on the way, and at night I would stop at pubs for a drink before continuing on the next day. What has surprised me is how simple and enjoyable casual relationships with women can be. Over those 2 weeks, I hooked up with a few women with no expectations other than having fun and enjoying each other's company without any emotional baggage. And surprisingly, I feel great about it all. People have asked if I ever reached out to the couple my wife cheated with. No, there's no point in doing so, and I have no desire to. It was her decision to betray our marriage, not theirs, and I have no interest in communicating with them. They hold no significance in my life. The best revenge against a cheating partner is indifference and moving on with your own life. Of course, thoughts about what happened still linger, but ultimately, life moves forward and we must focus on ourselves. My ex-wife still seems to think that once I calm down and realize I miss her, I will take her back. However, I have made it clear that our marriage is over for good and I don't care about her actions or who she sees anymore. Similarly, my actions are no longer relevant to her either. My daughter informed me that her mother is still in denial and feeling upset and ashamed about her actions. She wants my daughter to convince me to reconcile with her. I explained to my daughter that there is no chance of that happening, as her mother's remorse was only because she was caught, and I followed through with leaving her. Life has definitely taken unexpected turns, but I am eagerly anticipating the future now. With this final update, this story comes to its conclusion. What do you think about the revenge taken in this story? Share your valuable feedback and insights in the comments box. If you are new here and like my content, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. I will be uploading more real-life stories in a real human voice in the future, so stay tuned.